So we are smack in the middle of an AI revolution, right? Especially when it comes to writing. And these new tools, they're incredible. They promise us more efficiency, more productivity, maybe even a boost in creativity. But there's this tension right at the heart of it all. Are we actually making our brains better, or are we just outsourcing the very thinking that makes us smart in the first place?
Okay, let's just rip the Band-Aid off and start with the big question. Are these large language models, a superpower for writers, a way to bust through writer's block and get our ideas out there? Or are they a cognitive crutch that's slowly, maybe without us even noticing, weakening our most important mental muscles? This debate is happening everywhere, from classrooms to boardrooms, and honestly, the stakes couldn't be higher.
To really get to the bottom of this, we have to start by tackling a huge misconception about what writing even is. And it all starts with a simple but honestly pretty profound redefinition.
Most of us, we think of writing as just getting a thought that's already perfectly formed in our head down on paper. But the whole idea behind this explainer turns that on its head. It argues that writing is the process we use to create clear thoughts. The very act of searching for the right words, that's what forces us to clarify what we mean, to spot holes in our logic, and to stumble upon new connections. It's not just the final product, it's the cognitive forge itself. So if writing is literally the act of thinking, what happens when we start to automate large chunks of it? Well, this leads us to a massive potential pitfall in how we're using AI, something the source material calls the scaffolding fallacy.
Here's the trap, right? We look at the basic parts of writing, like forming a good sentence or building a solid paragraph, and we see them as annoying chores we can just hand off to an AI. We figure, hey, let the machine do the grunt work so I can focus on the big, creative ideas. But the argument here is that those foundational skills aren't just little Lego bricks you can swap out. They're prerequisites. They are the mental push-ups that build the strength you need for the heavy lifting of higher-level thought.
And this metaphor just nails it. It's perfect. You can't just wake up one day and design a magnificent cathedral if you've never learned the basic, hands-on skill of how to lay a single brick correctly. That foundational work, it isn't just a step you get to skip. It's the essential training ground where you learn the entire craft. So if we're at risk of letting those foundational skills get rusty, what are we actually putting on the line? What's the big deal? Well, it all comes down to a uniquely human ability, something that gets described as the connective leap. This distinction is absolutely critical. An AI is a master of elaboration. You give it a topic, say, the Roman Empire, and it can generate a mountain of well-written text by following the patterns it already knows. But human genius, that often comes from connection, from forging a brand new, unexpected, and meaningful link between two totally separate ideas. And that, right there, is the magic trick. Let's make this super concrete with an example. An AI can tell you everything there is to know about Roman aqueducts, and it can tell you everything about modern data networks. But that human spark of genius, that's seeing a principle in how the Romans moved water and realizing, whoa, that could solve a problem we're having with data packets today. That link doesn't exist anywhere in the training data. It has to be created out of the blue. That's the connective leap.
Okay, so how do we protect this incredible ability? How do we cultivate it? The key is to completely reframe how we think about the struggle of writing. Instead of seeing it as a pain to be avoided, we need to start thinking of it as our trip to the cognitive gym. I mean, I just love this quote. Think about it. You would never hire a robot to go to the gym for you and then expect to get stronger yourself, right? It sounds ridiculous. Well, the exact same logic applies to our brains. That mental effort, wrestling with the tricky idea, the friction of trying to find the perfect word, that is the workout. If we keep outsourcing it, our intellectual muscles are going to atrophy. It's that simple. This brings us to a really practical distinction we all need to start making. We have to separate two different kinds of writing. First, you've got generative writing. This is when text is basically a commodity, drafting a standard email, summarizing meeting notes. For this stuff, AI is an amazing tool for efficiency. But then there's cognitive writing, and that's when you're using language as a tool for discovery, to wrestle with a fuzzy idea and forge something new. That space, that's sacred ground for the human mind. So how do you put this into practice? This framework is a super clear guide. The next time you sit down to write something, just ask yourself one question. Is my goal here process-focused or product-focused? If your goal is to come up with something new, to synthesize ideas, if you need to be the originator, then AI use should be minimal, or maybe none at all. But if your goal is just efficiency, if you need to be the director and get a finished product out the door, then yeah, using AI extensively is probably a smart move. It's all about being intentional.
Ultimately, this all comes down to a choice. It's about consciously deciding to become what we could call a deliberate thinker in this wild new age.
We really need to burn this idea into our brains. Our entire world is obsessed with making everything easy, frictionless, seamless. But the powerful case being made here is that genuine insight, real creativity, game-changing innovation, it's all born from that friction. The struggle isn't a bug in the system, it's the main feature of real thinking.
And this leads us to this final concept, the paper and pencil core. Now, this isn't about literally throwing out our computers, it's a metaphor for a state of mind. It's about carving out a focused, distraction-free space where your brain gets to wrestle directly with a problem, with no AI in the middle. Protecting this time for good old-fashioned, unaided thought is what's going to build and maintain your cognitive strength for the long haul.
So here's where the rubber meets the road. As AI gets more and more powerful, the question for every single one of us gets sharper. Are we going to become really skilled operators of these incredible machines, just directing them to spit out answers that already exist? Or are we going to deliberately protect our paper and pencil time, get our reps in at the cognitive gym, and do the hard work it takes to become true innovators, the people who can make those connective leaps that no algorithm can ever see coming? The future of thought isn't written yet. The choice is ours.